This is Rachel Bodenschatz interviewing Mr. Chuck Bell on April 2nd, 2014, at Mr. Bell's house, and it is for the University of Akron Oral History Goodyear project for Dr. Wilson's oral history class. Are you ready, Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Okay.
You get extra credit already because you said your last name correct. I was reading your name. I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's very German.
Yeah, yes it is. Quite, yeah. It's pronounced exactly German, too.
Yeah. So my first question for you is, where were you born?
I was born in Akron, Ohio.
You're born here in Akron?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you grow up here
Pretty much, yeah.
the whole time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
And what was it like to grow up in Akron?
Well, I'm not quite sure. Not having grown up anywhere else,
Right.
it's a little hard to compare it. I think it was fine. I never considered it. I spent many summers on my paternal side's farm in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, that was like going to a different time in history because things were well different. I mean, it was like going back in history because that's just the way things were in those days.
Yeah.
So comparing it to that, I would say that, well, Akron, Ohio was progressive.
Progressive.
You know, relative to that, and that there was what amounted to the current day opportunities and techniques, and be they educational or whatever they may be. They were. So I think there was plenty of opportunity and access to whatever may interest somebody, and that's still the case in this area. There's access to anything that anybody is interested in doing, either professionally or recreationally, within less than 100 miles.
Yeah.
So it was. I received a very good education. It was public education, but it was very good. Lived for the most time that I remember in what at the time would be considered probably a suburb. It was Akron, but it was a bedroom district, if you will, and so it was a safe area as far as I was concerned. We were very near Firestone, as it worked out, but we were geographically positioned where we did not receive some of the fly ash and other pollutants of the day that some other neighborhoods might. Mm-hmm. So we were removed from that.
Where did you go to high school?
Went to Kenmore, which
Kenmore.
is in southwest, Akron, and fine. Then University of Akron for a while. Well, Worcester for a while to play football, and then came to University of Akron to finish, and then military, and then back to Kent, and then Akron U again for graduate school.
Okay, so you finished your undergrad at Kent.
No, I finished my undergrad at Akron.
At Akron?
I did some graduate work at Kent, and then also done it at Akron.
And you graduated with your master's from Akron?
Kent.
From Kent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did my doctoral work at Akron.
Oh, so you have your doctorate. You have a Ph.D.?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, well,
That wasn't on your informational sheet.
I very rarely write it. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
It doesn't matter.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I did all those things and never went to any graduation.
You never walked?
No, I never applied for any graduation. So it was the '60s, and sometimes there was a different way of thinking. So
what did you do for fun, like growing up in Akron? What was fun?
I don't know. I was in a discussion not too very long ago with somebody like that. I don't think I never learned. Fun and play is something that was learned.
Okay.
It's a learned behavior, and I don't think I ever learned to do that. It was not something that I don't think was encouraged in the household where I grew up.
Okay.
I think did a lot of being from sort of farm people. You did chores. You're not doing chores. You do schoolwork, and if you're not doing that, it's probably time to go sleep. So I learned later. Well, not later, but by the time I was 7 or 8 years old, that I could get out of some chores by playing sports. so I played sports. so I guess I did that. I didn't have any other access to what our kids growing up might have,
Yeah.
recreational parks and swimming pools and things like that.
So you didn't go to the movies or anything?
Oh, no. No, nothing like that. I mean, that would have been a hugely rare, something
Okay.
bizarre, maybe with a church group or something like that, you know, but no, there was no recreational or whatever you call those activities. It just wasn't done
Okay.
in my house. I'm not saying nobody did it. I said we didn't do it. You know, at least I didn't do it. And so that was, so that I can't answer is, I don't tell. Didn't really have any. Because I didn't, I don't know. I guess I probably, I can't answer that. I mean, just
That's
work
okay.
and go to school, and that's what you did. That's what I did anyway.
That's
That's what I was expecting.
definitely okay.
Later on in high school, then there was, some going to a film then or something like that, if I could afford it. But I was pretty much homeless since I could afford to go in anyway, so it didn't matter.
So besides the farm out in Pennsylvania, what's your family background a little bit?
Well, my paternal side is from southwest Pennsylvania, which in their case was a rural agrarian society. Some of the folks there did go into the mines, which were there's coal mining in the area, and some did that. But I wasn't led in too many directions, but I was really, really strongly encouraged never to work in any mines because they were so dangerous. So I didn't. Took that one. I mean, all you had to do is visit once, and I don't want to be part of this. So it was that. And then my mother was from generally the area here. Her parents and stuff were from the Broomfield area. They're again an agrarian society, so it's all pretty much farm rooted. I think my dad ended up with what probably was it wasn't diagnosed at the time, but it was probably essentially black lung.
Oh, okay.
Which is probably
Yeah.
from there again from working in mines and things like that. As younger, I suspect it had a lot to do with that. So he didn't. He died earlier on, and then my mom just went to work as people do it, office type work that she was qualified to do. That's about it. So that was that. But they both valued education, which was good. And grew up, as a matter of fact, has been kicked around here lately. Probably an anniversary is the Sputnik era and stuff like that.
Okay.
In 1958, I think it was, the Russians put the first satellite up in space, and there weren't any Fox News or anything like that fatalists then, but there was enough that everybody just knew that they were going to be all armed and were going to get shot by the Russians and the communists. And so everybody, so you had no choice, you had to go be a scientist of some sort to combat the Russian threat, or the communist threat, or whatever it was, which was absolute total nonsense, but that was the thinking of the day. So there was a big push countrywide for what we would call STEM now. It's
Okay.
science and math.
So
education.
your mom encouraged you to go to college?
I don't know that anybody. I don't recall anybody ever encouraging me specifically. I just never assumed. I never considered not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just assumed that's what I would do. And she was gone. I mean, I was on my own by the time in high school anyway. So, but I never considered not going. I didn't. There were alternatives, I think. I mean, there were trade schools and apprentice programs and things like, which were all fine. Nothing wrong with that. In my day, though, it would have been right out of high school would have been military then, because I don't think those were deferred. I think those were. I think you had to go. So, but the university, you would get a education deferment for a while. But they did. I went through ROTC, and then did military afterwards in between. So that's just the way it was.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So you didn't have any family in the rubber industry, or?
No,
Nope.
I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. My maternal grandfather worked at Ohio Edison, which is a public utility, as did his son, which would be my only uncle there. My father, when he worked in. It generally seemed to be machine shops. He was a type of an engineer. design work and things like that. I think they probably did a lot in one of the subsidiary groups for the rubber industry. I wouldn't doubt, because they did like steel work and things like that. And then after he passed away, my mother went to work as a secretary. I think she worked primarily in the trucking industry, which was also huge in Akron at the time.
Yeah.
But nobody specifically. The gentleman lived next door, who just had to be a scoutmaster as well, worked for Firestone, but I don't think there's any. I don't recall any works tales or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that was an influence. Put it that way. But no, nobody in my family was. I was the first one, and still the only one, I guess, who worked in the rubber industry, which is out of the ordinary, because it was not at all unusual to have several siblings and other relatives and uncles and cousins and whatever, and they would all be at Goodyear.
Yeah, that was
they'd all
the
be
trend.
at Firestone. You didn't go somewhere else evidently. But no, it was just me. And I just went there because they paid well.
Yeah. So you started at Goodyear after you finished at Akron and after you did your military time?
No. I went from high school to the College of Worcester for a bit and came back and worked for a few months at PPG Industries in Barberton.
Okay.
And then went to Goodyear. And I'd finished 1 year of undergraduate by then. Mm-hmm. So I worked in a laboratory from 4 to 12, went to school during the day. And many of us did that, and that's what we did. And then I finished school. Depending on what your major was, you may be working for Goodyear yet, or you went on and did your field. Worked in your field that you studied. A couple of people in our group at that time were education majors, so they went and taught school, and somebody else had a business degree, and there was another engineer, and things like that. So that's just what we did.
Okay.
And it was a pretty good job for going to school.
Oh yeah.
Because it paid well, but it did not take. You had plenty of time to do schoolwork, and since you were there anyway, you might do schoolwork. Yeah. So that was really an ideal situation. And since I was on my own, I had to work somewhere in order to live. Mm-hmm. So and I was married by then, shortly, just after, one or the other. Just before, I guess. Yeah.
So why did you pick Goodyear over like Firestone? Was there a particular reason?
No, there wasn't one company over the other one. It just that somewhere along the line, I couldn't even tell you who, that said Goodyear is hiring, you should apply.
Oh, okay. Just something simple. Yeah.
Yeah, just as simple as that. And probably somebody from PPG or something like that had mentioned it or something like that, because it was the late 60s, and there was a lot of movement then. I think there were jobs available and things like that. So, maybe a 30% salary increase. So that's significant. So it would be something along those lines. So.
And while you were working at Goodyear and getting your master's and getting your Ph.D., what was it like to balance that? Was it difficult?
Time-wise?
Just like, was it hard going to class, writing a dissertation, and then working at the same time?
I don't think so. There again, not knowing anything different. Got to do research, in my field at work, using the facility. That was encouraged. It was. So I mean, they're planning on using it. So so they. So it was. I can't imagine doing it another way. Okay. It was not any more difficult than it would be any time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there was. I always worked for people, immediate supervisors. I'm not talking about management. Immediate supervisors who were very supportive of all of us doing that sort of thing. And so if somebody needed time off to go do something, or they needed to leave a little early or come in a little late or something like that was fine.
They worked with you.
Well, yeah, because it was people that cared about the individual. So this person is doing that, So I don't think there's any thought not to do that, So at least in my experience, there may be other places that it's different. I don't know. But
so as you acquired degrees, did your work change at all, or were you have you always been in the laboratory? Because you're one of the few that's actually still working
I know.
at Goodyear. So, like, can you maybe tell me about the progression of your jobs, like, as time has gone on? Because you started in the lab, you said.
I started in what was called a physical test lab, and that's just running relatively routine tests. I mean, a machine does something or whatever, it generates numbers. And this is before microprocessors, so there's a lot of hand measurement and stuff like that. So after that, I went into a pilot plant area. It's all been in the chemical division. And so I went into, I filled an opening in a pilot plant process applications group that I actually just took a job of a person who was just ahead of me and had received his master's in environmental engineering, and he had gone down to another job, so I took, and it just progressed. And that was new and improved methods of making nitrile emulsion polymers, and I don't want to bore you with all that, but a little more responsibility, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was necessarily related to you have passed this milestone of degree or anything like that. Okay, you've got this education, you could do this, so, or here's this job, go do it. Pretty much, and if I didn't know how I found out. So I guess in retrospect it was that. I don't know that anybody was consciously thinking, this person's more qualified, we need to put him here and pay more money or something. That didn't happen. But it was a more challenging position with more responsibility, and that was good. And then a corporate decision was made to close that facility, and went on, and I ended up in the same general area working on a different type of polymerization, a different type of product lines, things like that, in similar fashions. But now computers have come along, and we're starting to apply microprocessors to all the not only just the analytics, but all the processes instead of more physical activity stuff that were computer programmed and science. The beginnings of that sort of thing. So there was that. That was over there, and then I don't know. Time went on, and next thing we know, it's time to do process analytics, which is what I did my ending work in, and that's actually trying to create an analytical lab capable data collection in the process, at the process, instead of having somebody have to take a sample and go to take some to some specialist to do something, say, well, okay, we want that data online, which, well, new improved microprocessors started to make that possible. At least theoretically possible. And then, well, because it's all out, one day you'll be able to do this. Well, one day. And so I kind of worked as liaison in that sort of thing. And, kind of still do sort of what's left over from that. So things are a lot of communication with chemical plant sites, which are in Texas mostly, but also we have one in Niagara Falls as well.
And I'm sorry, I may have missed it, but what are your degrees in? Just
my bachelor's degree actually is in earth science. I was going to be, and my graduate, my master's is in environmental engineering, and my doctoral work is in polymer science.
Okay.
So.
And then, why did you pursue work at Goodyear? Like, why did you continue to stay with them?
I was comfortable there. I liked the work. I liked what I was doing. There were other far higher priorities, raising children and having, living that kind of life and trying to provide for them. And the work was just that's what you did, and I never really consider leaving. I mean, there were offers here and there, but
Yeah.
I didn't really consider it. I mean, 'cause it wasn't. Invariably, that was meant relocating. I didn't want to drag them around doing that. They were so I just never really, I never really considered anything but staying there.
Okay.
Because it paid well enough that I got by, so I didn't care. Yes, if somebody's interested in making more money, bouncing around is the way to do it. I'm fully aware of that, but I just wasn't interested in doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I worked for somebody who thought I was the stupidest person that ever lived because I didn't do that. But my priorities were different, so I just So. And there again, I would say you have to remember. You would remember, but being from the '60s, some of my values and things like that are maybe different than average. So making money is not a high priority.
That's okay.
It still isn't.
So, kind of getting more into like your actual job and what you're doing at Goodyear, can you describe what it was like in your department / area or field? Like if you want to just like pick one, that's fine, or if you want to talk broadly, that's okay.
I'm not quite sure I understand.
Like physical conditions, were there any health concerns? 'Cause you see,
I see what
was
you're
it
saying.
like?
I thought you were asking me what specifically did I do. And I said, well, I said, working in the chemical division, always have at Goodyear. There are some very potentially extremely hazardous materials, and as a result of that, and before my time, there was always a pretty strong emphasis on safety. I mean, as far as especially like fire spark, that kind of stuff, things like that, because it was well known that butadiene, which is one of our key players, is very happy to explode. It's a gas at room temperature, and it's kept in confined, and you just nobody messes with that. So there was always a safety concept, probably more emphasis than other places in the community, maybe other types of business. I can't speak for fire, so I'm sure they were doing the same thing in their synthetic areas, because this is dangerous stuff. So we had that. However, there were practices that were just routine at the time that would not be tolerated today. The huge use, for one example, is the use of benzene as an everyday solvent. Benzene now today is known to be a carcinogen. It's a cancer-causing agent. There's no doubt. It's not suspected. It's not. Could be. It is. It is. But and we used a lot of benzene. Laboratory setting, you're using small amounts. You're not necessarily washing your hands in it or anything like that. I mean, so your exposure, just by design, there were fume hoods and things like that. So you didn't have to, bathe in it, as it were. People working out at the films or out at in those days aircraft, then it was aerospace thing, making coverings for blimps and for airplanes, things like that. They used live benzene by the bucketful. Okay. And many of them died of leukemia as a result. It's as simple as that. So these, as these conditions became known, there were efforts to usually engineer some changes to minimize exposures and things like that. We had in our one pilot plant. One of the compounds, one of the monomers there was acrylonitrile, another very hazardous material. Yeah, flammable wasn't nothing like butadiene, but that was the other monomer. That was the two. But when they process from the liquid rubber, the latex they would call it, to get the actual crumb rubber out, there's a coagulation process that is nowadays totally enclosed. Okay, you might be able to see the window. That's about it. Totally closed. In those days, they were just open, big open tanks with a big stirrer in it, and the stuff was coagulated very, very hot, and one could actually physically see waves and waves of gas coming off of these tanks, and since it's heavier than air, it would go towards it, and of course there'd be no smoking or sparks or anything like that there, but people were breathing it with a great deal of regularity, and that wasn't good. I do recall those types of things. That would not be tolerated today. It was routine at the time. I mean, there were efforts to take it away, but they weren't as good as we have today. And so the concept of be careful and minimize exposure was there, but for the most part, engineering applications took a while to catch up with the ability to remove, to be a barrier between the individual and the harmful materials. So that's been a big change. Not necessarily the concept of management or anybody else about keeping people safe. It's just what's available to do it. And there again, on a reasonably economical basis, because everything eventually is going to come down to money. If it would be too very expensive to remove the individual from the harm, somebody would have to decide either allow the harm or don't make the product. So that's a business decision, and that's what some people have to wrestle with. So. And sometimes we do make the decision not to do that, but because of the expense. But there was a time that just because of the lack of things available, there was much more exposure. And generally, for the most part, it was exposure through inhalation. It was just things in the air or the environment, rather than physical touching, and certainly not ingestion or anything like that. So that would other places, perhaps working with carbon black, and when they prepare tires or prepare rubber for tires, the concern would be inhalation.
Okay.
And that's where the black lung and that sort of thing come from. And they would inhale physical particles rather than a chemical. And so and it manifests itself in different ways as problems. But I don't recall a time when it wasn't understood that this stuff is dangerous, it's not good for you, don't bathe in it, wear gloves and that sort of thing, and that's the thing you're supposed to do. And they were always that stuff is always available. I did do. I took one trip for Goodyear to India one time, and they were making the exact same material, and that's why we're there, because they were suggesting that they weren't able to make the quantity and therefore not the profit that we suggested they could. And so some of us went over there to find out what the issue was. How come you're not making enough? And the bottom line there was they were playing funny games with the books. But before that, we got to see how they interacted, and their operators who worked in the system. And even though we had supplied plenty of safety materials, glasses and goggles and gloves and boots and stuff like that, none of them were being used. Now, I don't know what happened to all that stuff. I would not be surprised if it wasn't sold by somebody off to something else, because it's a whole different concept and a whole different. At the time, well changed now, I'm sure, but at the time, so there were places in the world that were doing things without the concept of safety, and I must say that we did not have that. If we were doing anything unsafe, we're probably choosing to do it. Quite frankly,
Okay.
I don't recall anybody being told to do anything unsafe, or not having access to the proper tools. I mean, there might be some specific tasks that an operator wouldn't want to do because it's kind of a pain or it's messy or something like that, But whatever might be necessary at the time, the best available at the time, was provided. And I'm sure Firestone and everybody else was the same way.
Cool. And what were interpersonal dynamics between workers and then maybe the workers with the managers or the higher ups?
Yeah. I don't. Well, I'll try to speak for that. I don't know a lot about that because I didn't interact very much with any of that sort of thing. I didn't.
Okay.
When I was for all those years going to school, I worked 4 to 12.
Yeah.
And all the management folks are gone. They're just they're just gone. At the time, the folks that worked like in the pilot plants and stuff like that for us, the operators, they were union folks, high school at best, and their supervisors and foremen, the first two layers of supervision, were invariably people who had those jobs and worked their way up. They aren't degreed people that came in as managers. Okay, and so that would be those dynamics I saw regularly.
Okay.
And those were, as far as I could tell, more person to person. We don't get along with everybody. I don't. I got to work with John over there, but it's not my favorite person. We're probably not going to go hang out afterwards, and that's okay. That's just personal dynamics. I think there were minimal accounts that I was aware of with the operators, wherein there was obvious personality disagreement for whatever reason that might have had decades of history. I don't know, but I don't recall a lot of that being a problem as far as working on a project.
Yeah.
Okay. The other folks in the room the other day, those were all engineering folks. They were skilled crafts, of various sorts, electricians, machinists, that sort of thing. That was a whole different world. They sometimes talk about this and that thing, and I think they forget the fact that you're making a really good hourly rate, and you're like that, and the rest of us, you don't really kill yourself either. Some people that are strong union supporters and stuff like that, I don't have anything for or against the union. There you go. There was some of that as far as like power struggle type things, But there again, as a technical person, I'm not. They get painted as management simply because you're not in the union, but I don't necessarily have any, sentiments towards management either. I saw some people that were in management and probably shouldn't have been, and there again, from the technical side, and I see that going back to that some today, is that the management, and that I would say, up to like director level, vice president level, that kind of thing, which a pretty good level in the corporation. Oh, yeah. We're taken from the field. We're taken from they would take an engineer that had done a pretty good job, and then you just became a section head of this group of engineers, and then you were a manager of a bigger group, and on and up. Maybe never, ever, probably never a management course in your life. But for the most part, if you were offered that position, that first elevation into first level management, it would be some more money, and it would only be offered once, and if you turned it down, you're just pretty much saying that, okay, I'll work at this level for the rest of my life, and I won't expect any raises and that kind of stuff necessarily, So they were, in many cases, it was, if you wanted to, I hate to use the word succeed because I don't think it's success, but anyway, if you want to make more money, this is the way to do it. It's the only way to do it. So many people ended up in management positions that just we're not cut out to be managers in any way, shape, or form, by education or by personality or by predilection. It didn't matter. So oftentimes, with respect to the folks in the union and things like that, they had some legitimate complaints because some of these guys were real knuckleheads. They were. They was saying, "Where do you come from?" And simply, and they might have been knuckleheads no matter where they were, but certainly as managers, and it's just really unfortunate because things that did not have to be at odds all the time. Things like, and you'd see that, always. And that was unfortunate because that wasn't at all necessary. The union guys are all the bad guys, and then the union guys are saying, "Oh, the management guys are all company guys," and nonsense. Everybody's trying to do a job, I guess, or should be. But I do have to say that there were some people, in my experience, in the technical end of things, in the chemical division, that went through management and shouldn't have been. There should have been. And there's always, and still is to this day, talk about a dual ladder, saying, oh, you can be a technical person and elevate into scientists and associate scientists and stuff like that, and not have to be management at all. And you can still, make more money, which is, it's said. And theoretically that exists, but it's not quite the same. It's better than it was, but it's still, it's still, if you want to be elevated, if you want to go up in your career, you need to go through management. So, and that's really unfortunate because everybody's not cut out to be managers, and a bad manager can do a lot of harm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's, I don't know how we got there, but that's
okay. No, it's awesome.
So it's I think it has a lot to do with what I observed as a lot of the union management challenges.
Okay, and were you part of the union?
No, I'm kind of in the middle.
In the middle?
Yeah, yeah. The union people would consider me management because I'm not in the union. So if you're not in the union, you had to be management.
Okay.
Because that's the only two.
The only.
So it really is just a salary position, and
right.
It's technical, and I viewed it as being in the middle. How management looked at us is probably, since they came from, most of them came from the technical side of things, probably just as a peer group.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. That's the best I could do there.
No.
But well, we were not management. No, we were not in the union either.
Is there a reason you didn't join the union, or?
Oh, we'd have been fired.
Yeah,
we
couldn't.
couldn't join the union.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you couldn't at all.
Anybody who was eligible to be in the union was in the union because you could not work those jobs without being in the union.
Okay.
However, as a technical person, that's a salary position, and that's
just no.
You just don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Just don't, you don't have an opportunity. You'd actually have to have been a union organizer, tried to organize engineers or something like that, and they would have found a way for you guys to go. I would guarantee you, because that would not make the management people happy at all. So.
Back when you visited our class, you brought up the idea of the Goodyear family, saying how you used to be during orientation you were called welcome to the family. And
that wasn't me that said that, but okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That was Mike Wallace said that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I was just wondering, what that meant to you, like the Goodyear family.
Yeah, not having much of a family life, it doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
I think I never really recall ever being worried about being fired or laid off or anything like that. Because I give them a fair day's work and all that kind of stuff. Always did. And so I never. So there may have been something in the overall personality of the group or of the structure that led me to be more comfortable. I don't know. I don't recall ever worrying about that. Had a couple kids, never cost a cent. That's a big benefit. I realized there's a benefit then. There's everything. The benefits like that were really well received. I thought that was really a plus. Much. I don't like to use the word worse. Not nearly as good now as they were.
Oh, okay.
But I don't mind paying part either. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say it's not fair, but at the end of the day, it was, and it was just expected.
Yeah.
As were, goodness sakes, did they have annual? I think they were annual pay raises, just so much, and that a lot of it had to do with the strength of the union, and then the concept that we don't want anybody else jumping ship and joining the union, so we will. I'm not so sure how much that was consciously thought by the people that always make those decisions, because I'm not involved in that. But that was. I never did a lot of things. I don't want to say take advantage of. that would simulate the familyness of the corporation. Okay, a lot of close friendships with peer group, work with people you work with and things like that, which just happen to work at the same company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I never really attended, for the most part, a lot of the rah-rah stuff. And things like that. Just did. There used to be a group called the Foreman's Club. It was a salary men's group that eventually was also women at the time. But back in the day when I was starting, there weren't any women. Secretaries. That was it. And that was there was a lot of projects they did around like help build some stuff a weak foot leg and things like that. So it was kind of supposed to be like a social group, foreman and things like that. And there were a lot of social activities there. A lot of times you'd take your kids and stuff like that to that. And that was nice. So in some ways that would be part of the Goodyear familyness or something like that is in that respect, I guess. But there again, being in the chemical division, which was kind of removed from the Plant One and all the major campus of the corporation, I didn't hang out at the Goodyear gym. I didn't go get my hair cut at the Goodyear barber shop.
Okay.
I mean, those things were available, and nobody said I couldn't do that. But I didn't. I would have had to physically go somewhere to do that, because I can't. It's not like it's a walking distance or anything like that. It's so I did that huge complex of Plant One that led into Plant Two and things like that. We were removed from that far enough that we were almost, I don't want to say a different company, but it was physically removed.
Yeah.
And so we didn't, so I didn't go there. I played in some of the company spots like intramural sports, because very near to where our building was where the ball fields and stuff were. So,
that made
so
it
we did it. So you did. So, but there again, I don't recall being conscious of that as being a Goodyear thing. It was a playing in a softball league, which happened to be all Goodyear people, but I didn't think about that.
Right.
You play with your buddies that you're, usually who you work with, and whatever ringers you could get. But that was supply. I mean, in retrospect, looking back, and to be all fair, it was subsidized by the company. So that's a good thing to do. So, yeah.
And kind of when Goodyear started changing, we had the radial tire invasion and those kinds of improvements, some would argue. But what was your first indication that the industry was changing? Talking this is typically the 60s, 70s, maybe early 80s.
The graphic, it's always been the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. So tire is a core business, still is. That hasn't changed. The things that I worked on, we worked on a lot of the polymers went into tires, but they went to, we worked on other projects too as well, other polymer applications. The economics of the day, like in the early 70s, there was an energy crisis, just like we went through. And it was bigger. There were lines at gas stations, not because it was so expensive, which it was. The price went up. There were shortages, and in some places, not here in Akron that I recall, but gasoline was rationed, so you could only get in some states you could only. I don't know, depending on your license number or something like that, you could only buy gasoline every other day or something like So things. There's energy crisis as a result of that. That had great impact on the economics of the country, and then of course the corporations as well. Everything we do, especially in the chemical division, is petrochemical based. So at that time, some of the products and divisions that we had were less and less profitable. So they were being phased out maybe and scaled down, and things like the films division and polyester and some of the other non-tire type applications. We even had adhesive groups and things like that. And they were making the conscious corporate business decision not to pursue that because they were watching their money. They were pulling their money. So that was the start of a lot of change. But change, being from the 60s, change was all about. I mean, it's all good because you guys have been discriminating against people, and you've been mean to all these folks, and you did all kinds of these social things. You got us in a war that was stupid, all kinds of stuff. And still do. And so we haven't learned anything, but anyway. So young and ambitious. Not professionally ambitious, just socially conscious, I think would be the thing. Change wasn't perceived as a bad thing necessarily. When your friend's department got shut down and he had to go find a job somewhere else, that was unfortunate. Yeah, you saw that. But there again, we're educated. Most of the peers and groups are educated. They're going to find something somewhere else. It might be in Houston, it might be in Atlanta, but nevertheless, you'll find something. It's, gee, it was fun, hanging out with him, but he and his family moved out wherever. So it wasn't anywhere near like fatalism or anything like that. It wasn't people weren't that I knew and interacted with weren't like facing homelessness or anything like that. So change was not necessarily by young folks like me considered to be anything negative. Yeah. Okay. The corporate raiders thing, which was the mid to late 80s, I think 86 primarily was the Goldsmith era. It was a entrepreneur who actually tried to take over Goodyear as a corporation, and there was a huge effort citywide to combat that by getting people to buy stock and to invest in the Goodyear and things like that. And in order to get capital, money, liquid, the company then sold a lot of subsidiaries, a lot of the films division, the rim plant, the steel products and things like that. They sold that, and the purpose of selling that then was not a corporate decision to do core business. It was to get money to fight this corporate raider, and they eventually prevailed. It cost a lot of money. It took a long time to make that. But when it's done, then Goodyear had shrunk down to a core business consciousness, where it's tires and tire-related or rubber-related products. Belts and hoses and things like that. Things called industrial products at the time. They made all kinds of other rubber things, but everything had to do in some fashion with either automobiles or transportation or something. So that's what was left, and there other product lines and other activities were either sold or such a small amount that didn't have a huge impact on the bottom lines.
Okay.
So, and then later on, in about 2008, they got rid of many of those even. So, because there was another conscious decision not to do that, and they were strong advising not to do that, but they did it anyway. Okay. And within months, they realized that was a bad idea. Yeah. But okay, whatever. So still in all, and perhaps because of the field I'm in, just the science field, change is not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. We're doing a process. That's what I do. And so we're looking for process. And process means change. So it's not. Am I gaga about every systematic change they've made or any latest Harvard Business School concept model? No. It's Do I get upset about it? No. It's just because it will. It's. I joke about reinventing the wheel. And it used to be about every 5 years you'd see the same stuff coming along. And in some cases, still do. I'm working on a project now that we're going to scale up from one of our plants. I don't want to get into all that, but we looked at exactly the same thing. I'm looking at reports from far back as 1965. And I was looking at this stuff in about 2002 again, and we're doing it again. This time we're going to do it though. so it'll be fun. So it's just an odd file cases. It's just a matter of going back.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we going to do now? So okay, and we've probably done it. So or at least looked at it, and may not have pursued it for very good reasons. It might not have been economically feasible to do it at the time, and there might not have been a market there. So they put it away and maybe look at it again, and maybe now. Or maybe there's a new source of some raw materials that'll make this better and maybe we can make that a little less expensive. And maybe it's not as hazardous as it used to be. Things like that. So it's not just boneheadedness we didn't pursue that. It's not. There's usually a good reason why somebody didn't pursue it. But it's kind of interesting that we are looking at the same things over and over and over again. With moderate twists here and there. So anyway.
And still kind of like talking about change a little bit, the strikes in the 70s.
Yeah.
How do you think those affected things for the company?
There's no doubt that there were some management people, and I'm not talking about management people, that really had no use at all for organized labor. None whatsoever. There are people in our government right now and that feel the same way. That's one position one can take. Being, interestingly enough, in the chemical division out there at Archwood, we got a lot of first look at the strike. Especially, 76 was one, I think. Well, I know it was. My daughter was born in 76. And the 82. 76 was a big one. It was all summer, hundreds of days. The chemical division is on both sides of Archwood Avenue in Akron. The north side, which would be the plant one side, if you will, I don't know, the corporate side, if you will, the side away from the Akron airport is one side. And we had Semi Works and what used to be a production plant, but now is, and even in 76 was a pilot plant, but a different product line than we had on stuff. Okay, and I was responsible for stuff over there too, and was actually housed there for a while. That was the only facility in Akron that had one access in and out. Oh. So if you're going to picket someplace and you want to disrupt things, that's the place you go. And we would watch that. And I was still on the north side in those days, and I wasn't asked to go to some of the other plants to work because I was a student. I was always a student. but I did get to work in the pilot plant a little bit and learned a lot, by the way, because I can always learn better doing stuff than I can watching something. But anyway, that's another story. But we could watch the folks across the street because there's some laws that say that you're not allowed to block access to this plant. Okay, but they would do it, and they would stop the people from coming in. They would lock the people in there until the sheriff would come along and read. The first day they stopped everything because the company lawyers would go to the court and get an injunction to say you can't do that. Yeah. So the sheriff would come out and read that. And everybody heard that, then you've got to move aside, you've got to let them pass back and forth. Whether Teamsters and the truckers are doing that, that's a whole different thing. We're talking about people that work there. And like I say, they blocked the thing. Wouldn't do that. The thing about the law, I guess the way it's interpreted, I'm not an attorney, is that you need to be there to hear whoever hears this. And the sheriff would use his bullhorn or whatever, so everybody hear, and they would move off. Sheriff would go away. He would say, sheriff would go, these union guys would go away, and 20 more would come from up the road. So, and here we go all day long. It's, and it would just, and the sheriff was sometimes busy doing sheriff stuff, and it couldn't just run away, come back real quick or something like that. So we would watch it, and we knew the people there.
Okay.
It's not that we didn't know these people, so. I'd cross the picket line because I was a salaried person and I'm going to work.
Yeah.
I'm going to work in the lab or something like that. Never really had a bad time about it. I think the people knew that I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
It was just our job. You could quit. Yeah, you could. I'm not going to. But, yeah, and things like that. But I never had a bad time. Some people did have one-on-one incidences, and I think what I observed is they didn't like each other no matter what. So it's just a matter of that was going to happen. It's a good excuse to fight. So, that sort of thing. So, the root of your question had to do with the strikes. So now,
well, did it?
There were concerted efforts, and I'm sure designed to eliminate in Akron. I can't speak about anywhere else. In Akron, as many of the union jobs as possible.
Oh, okay.
No doubt about it. That was a philosophy. So, was it motivated because they didn't like the union, didn't like the people? I don't know so much as they didn't like paying the wages that they paid. They felt in many cases, in many places, that some of the departments were way overstaffed. Mm-hmm. There were way too many highly paid skilled workers, and even the maintenance folks and stuff like that. There were agreements that the union was very strong. They forced numbers. You will have this many, all that kind of stuff, and it's very expensive. So I'm sure there was a lot of motivation to save some cost by cutting down. Not necessarily getting scabs or other things like that. It's just that, God, we don't need so many.
Yeah.
Or can we, put some engineering controls in that we don't need somebody watching that gauge all day and things like that. Can't we send that to a computer and we could maybe not have as many workers as we need, and we would save money in that respect. Mm-hmm. At the same time, yes, a benefit would be it would weaken the union. Well, I don't know if that was the main design.
Right.
Chicken or egg. I'm not really sure, but money's the bottom line for everything, Rachel. So I'm sure some people were seeing that as a huge cost saver, potential cost saver. Okay. And then they would relocate some of the tire building departments and tire lines to other facilities in the country. They built Lawton, Oklahoma, as a totally salary plant. Mm-hmm. Okay, huge, hackles because all these blue collar, all these hourly jobs were leaving, and they weren't leaving to be hourly jobs somewhere else, union jobs somewhere else. They were over here, and they're gone. And not unique to just Goodyear, the labor unions as a group started to lose some power. People don't like to lose power. I don't care who you are. They don't like to give up power once they have it, and so everything would go with that. Were there management types and corporate decisions made to accelerate that? Sure, absolutely. Yeah, every chance they had, because some of them, some of the guys, and they were all guys, would be happy not to have any dealing with any union anymore. So was their intent? Oh, if we do that, we'll be able to beat up on the employees and treat them like slaves or something like that. No, that was, I'm sure, not the intent, and that was not the model at all. But I'm sure on one side of the thing they're going to see it that way. Well, you just you want to get rid of us because we're protecting all these workers and getting them fair wages, and you just want to cut all their pay and make them work for nothing and stuff like that. I don't know that was designed. Yes.
So were tensions was there tension during this period of strikes? Because there was one in the 70s, 73, and 76, though.
Oh yeah, there were absolute tensions. Now, not being part of negotiations or anything like that, but in the day, there was always a target company. Mm-hmm. So, because Goodyear, Firestone, Goodrich, everybody, contract was up at the same time.
Right.
So now, later on, then everybody's on their own. But if Goodyear is the target, and there was great deal of animosity for as many reasons as you could possibly think. They were all probably fit. Power's part of it. That's the obvious part. But then there's also all these carryover personality differences, and they were like that. So I got when he was on the parking, that kind of stuff. So because it was all people, so people bring with them all the baggage that people have. But there was that, and there was an awful lot of press, and there was a lot of almost politicking. I don't know, almost politicking, because union leadership is a powerful job, political type job, just like corporate management is a powerful job. So you have these people butting heads and that sort of thing. So my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was a union organizer back in the 20s and 30s for the utility workers, and he knew about organizing labor people and having strikes go out, and trains full of scab workers that are armed coming from other places to do the jobs. So he knew about it. We never saw anything like that. There was never going to be anything like that.
Okay.
It just wasn't happening. There were laws in place that just disallowed that. Mm-hmm. You'd hear a lot of the same verbiage because people heard stories probably from their own parents, whatever. That was never about to happen. I never ever was even considered that happening.
Okay.
The only time it was the fear that I had real concern was the Kent State situation that was resolved around the trucker strike, because the National Guard had just been pulled off of a duty protecting some roadways and interstates and things like that, and they were armed because of the Teamsters strike, which was, the Teamsters were historically and by reputation much more physical, violent, and things like that than the rubber workers may have been.
So you're saying the National Guard, when they were in Akron right before the Kent State shooting for a trucker strike?
Because of the Teamster strike, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They had been mobilized. The National Guard had been mobilized for that.
Yeah.
Some of which the people ended up at Kent State too, which was really bad planning. But that's who was mobilized. So that's
right. So that was a more scary experience
well, yeah,
than anything
that was real. That was live fire.
Right.
That was people actually getting shot.
Okay.
And
wow.
so that's real. Mm-hmm. We saw nothing like that ever. Saw some magically flattened tires and things like that. That's really wrong, but no real physical harm.
Okay.
You'd hear stories about, did you hear something? It's all rumor. As far as I know, I did not see anybody get hit. So,
that's good.
Yes, it is good. But damage of cars, paint jobs, and things like that happened. But and that's inexcusable, but it happened. But it was the major concern, like you might be alluding to, would be that.
Yeah. No. Okay. So, with the decline of industry, did you see any effect in your line of work in the chemical area? As Goodyear kind of I almost want to say transitioned out of Akron?
Corporate headquarters for Goodyear and R&D, research and development, it's always been in Akron.
Okay.
So, there was obvious change, especially in development, research as well. When corporate decision was made not to do certain products anymore, well, there were researchers and development people who supported those products. They're out of a job.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of people. In my building, when I got there, I'm sure there was over 300 people in the building. At one time in about 2009, there was five of us left. So that's a big. Now we're probably at 90, and it's about where it's going to stay. It's about where we should be, because we would never have another wholesale wing and all that kind of marketing. We wouldn't have that because those folks are located at the plant site, so that's where the products are. So So this is back there. So in that respect, yes, we did see that. There again, your good friends being being let go. Some of them are at a pretty good age, and that's so you're not necessarily just going to hop off to another job because if you're in your 54, 56 years old, it's tough. So and that was unfortunate, and then we did feel bad. I don't know that outside of really disagreeing with the management decision, I don't know that anybody was necessarily put out with an individual. Okay, so really disagreed with that decision. Yeah. But Joe Jingo, who was the vice president of R&D and General Products at the time, left the company and was quick to say that was a really bad decision that we did some of that, which is because we actually at the time in 2008, some people were told to fire their customers that were purchasing small customers. Some of our latex products from our Houston plant, specifically, real small little businesses that had just like a niche market somewhere for something, and we were the sole supplier, so it essentially put them out of business. And what's the point? It made a little money, didn't make a lot of money, it just made, because it's only going to be tires, and that's what I think. And so whoever that was, I'm not quite sure who was I know who ended up making that announcement. I don't know that was his decision.
Right.
But, it really was a bad idea. Just because you injured people you didn't even know for no reason.
Right.
If things that weren't making money, I understand that. Yeah, sell them or quit making it. That's nobody tells you have to operate at a loss because you're not going to do that very long. So, so that was unfortunate. But as far as me personally and the things I work on, that just kind of kept on, as it had been.
You never worried about your job or anything?
Nah, I'm too dumb to worry about my job. I don't know. There again, it just never dawned on me. I just never thought about it. I just showed up and did, and there was a massive layoff, the last one, and some people were told to, at noon you're supposed to go there, or something like that. And other people you're supposed to go somewhere else. I don't consider myself all that stupid, but it never gave any thought because the folks over here were being dismissed, and the rest of us were saying, well, the folks over there are being dismissed, so you're still working, so go get busy. Whatever, So, but I never, I just never, I don't know. I think probably by the time this really happened, I was much older, and I had so much time, time that I could have probably, I could have retired, and probably got by. I never concerned myself about. There had been a time in my life when I was homeless and I was hungry. I know what that is, and I had no concern that was going to happen. So kids were already grown. The kids were already grown, so I didn't have to worry about. You got little ones at home. That's a big difference.
Oh, absolutely.
So it just it never was a concern. It never was. I just figured I'll fails. I'd have to work for a living. God forbid that. But I guess I could have done it.
Yeah. And how do you think it affected, on a broader scale, Akron? Like seeing Goodyear, Firestone, and B.F. Goodrich leave.
That's a whole lot different then because, as somebody mentioned quite rightly the other day in the class, there were so many layers of subsidiary work in the industry, and they were just gone. That's it. Yeah. Their work is just gone, and so things closed up. There was depressed areas of town developed, abandoned buildings and things like that, and the need for urban renewals and things like projects like that. So it was devastating. There were some places that areas you just didn't want to go because it wasn't nothing there in the first place. But it was kind of a shame. And then when somebody don't like General Tire, it was just Raz. It was taken down. It was kind of a shame. And that's an obvious show of change. When things are actually, brick and mortar is actually down. I mean, it's disappeared. It's gone. So that was. But they're again still in process. Because saying things were. There was a lot of positive as well. I mean, the air way cleaner. We've moved strongly into the technology age. So we're doing all kinds of stuff, communicating with the plants and watching plant systems through our computer screens and stuff like that. So this is so as far as we're concerned, we're still very busy. We're still seeing production from the place that we're supposed to be. So we're doing that, and a lot of the trucking industry, a lot of trucking companies went. Well, they didn't have any jobs either, so they're gone. So the streets weren't quite as torn up as they used to be, and things like that. And so there were some benefits, an influx of hiring of more technical people, which tended to, for the most part, raise the average socioeconomic situation, and that can be looked at it's all good things, and then things that would spring up to support that. We have a world-class philharmonic if people are into that. We have all kinds of arts and things like that are available, especially through the University of Akron and E.J. Thomas and stuff like that. These things sprang up then because there was an audience for that. So that part of change, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Were there sections in art or still not sections of town that are kind of vacuous because of that? Yeah, a lot of that's changing rapidly still now, but for a long time it was pretty rugged in some places, and that's unfortunate. But I don't know. I think for the most part, I personally look at it as a good thing.
Okay.
Not that anybody losing their job is a good thing,
Right.
but overall for the community, you're healthier.
Yeah,
For one
absolutely.
thing, and I think for the most part, our infrastructure is better. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay, my last question for you is, what do you think are the most important meanings or legacies about Goodyear and the tire industry in Akron? Or are there any lessons that you can see?
Well, I'm sure you're not talking about management lessons. I mean, hindsight's 2020. That was a really dumb idea. Well, it's easy to say now. But so that's not quite fair. I'm not sure about that. The polymer science groups at the University of Akron.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, that's huge for the community. That's huge for our society. That's good, and it's a good niche to have found. And it makes sense to be there. But that's not just Goodyear. That's all of us. That's world renowned. That's an excellent process that evolved.
Yeah.
And then the university itself, as a result of that, and then the support from corporations, Goodyear included, for the university, for I'd like to see more, just because of who I am, I would like to see more philanthropic work, even though there's a lot. There is a lot. There's a lot of dollars that go into United Way and things like that, and should. But I think without too much difficulty, they could do some more. And yes, we encourage the people to be involved with that, and that's good, and we are. But I think as a corporation, we could even do more. And some of the corporations too. I mean, Gojo, for example, is really a PNC Bank is huge in the social justice issues and they support financially a lot of the programs and agencies and things like that. So, and Goodyear does as well, but I still feel they could do a little more. But that's just my personal opinion. So we have a lot of services because of that. One wouldn't have to go to a community very far away and see that those services do not exist. And it's in big part because of the philanthropy, but also the tax base.
Yeah.
We pay taxes, so so the corporations pay taxes too. So that's legacy, even though it might not have been designed.
Yeah.
It is lasting. It would be good. The corporation Goodyear is known internationally and highly more highly rated now than they were a few years ago in the industry and in the corporate world in general. That's probably a good thing. It's a good thing for the local community, you know. I think Rich Kramer's done a good job, all things considered. So we have that. I think, and it has very little to do, I think, with the downsizing of the corporation, but I think the segmentation of the population is not necessarily a good thing. We see that the inequity between some in the suburbs and those the haves and the have-nots, as it were. That's kind of a well-hidden thing. There's still in Akron City. There's still a significant part of the population who is not have the earning potential that they should have, yeah, or the opportunities too, for that matter. That's unfortunate. And, well, we'll see how that goes. I really think that corporations could get together and help alleviate that and actually eradicate that. But yeah, we'll see. well, we'll see, because they could do that, whereas the politicians could do it too. All they got to do is vote for to spend the money that way, but then they wouldn't get reelected. So, but the corporation could do it, and they look like good guys. They could do the same thing. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens, because there's a lot of intervention that needs. I run a not-for-profit for literacy that gives books to kids that live in poverty.
Awesome.
So I know a little something about that, and that could. You hear all the blather in the news or whatever, something like that. And it's generally the case. You can blame the teachers in schools all you want to, but until you encourage or somehow demand some kind of, we'll say it, parent involvement. It wouldn't have to be a parent, as long as it's got to be somebody in that family group or that family cluster needs to be responsible for that child and just take an interest in that child, because they all start off, so they're fine. Anybody that gets it. But we have a lot of kids that are entering kindergarten, Akron Public Schools, maybe a year and a half behind. Well, if you're a year and a half behind at kindergarten, your chance of having a really fun educational experience, especially with nobody at home helping you, is like nil. So you got no chance whatsoever. So they have some programs that are okay, but the ones that are working and holding are the ones that actually require some kind of adult, older sibling, neighbor, grandparent, whatever involvement on a regular basis with the child. And those systems hold. So it's doable. It's doable. It's just, but to come out as a politician and say, here's what we need to do. We're going to require parental involvement with the child. If you don't have it, or what? Yeah. Well, we're going to remove the kid from the home. Or you're going to go out there and say do that, and you're going to have right on your hands. You're going to have, but that'd be best for the kid, maybe. I don't know. Not permanently, but there has to be some alternative, or what? Yeah. If there's not an or what, who's going to pay attention to you?
Exactly.
But that's how you do it. You get somebody involved with that kid that cares about that kid, get them ready for kindergarten to start with, and those that have that opportunity compete every bit as well as anybody else. Mm-hmm. And they come out and they can succeed. And they will succeed. But that is not politically favorable to come out and talk about that, because they're voters. No, they're not. Those people don't vote. But another issue. But anyway, so that's that. But it's legacies. There's the metro parks, which are named. We have a really nice metro park system. Mm-hmm. If you didn't know, it's Goodyear Metropolitan Park. It's Firestone Metropolitan Park. It's going to be named that way forever. And there's a good reason that it's named that, and it's because there's a lot of corporate money that went into those to start earlier on those things, and that's a good thing. That's a really good legacy. Mm-hmm. You can point to things like Stan Hewitt and stuff like that. That's like a museum, but I think the park system is a really good example, because that is something. You have Firestone Park, which is a allotment area. It's a housing. It's not owned by Firestone now. It used to be, but it's not. And Goodyear Heights is the same thing. But that's what the older corporations would do way back in the 30s, 40s. They would start a housing community for the people, their employees. Firestone Park was actually, what was laid out, in the shape of the shield, Firestone Shield. A lot of people don't know that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Harvey Firestone did that. I think probably the only way you could see is if you flew over an airplane. But anyway, that's a little trivia.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. And then, of course, as time went on, things were built differently. The streets were cut. It's hard to see. But you can look. You can find online or something like that.
Okay.
Where it would actually show that in an older map, an old photo.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's kind of neat. So there was that kind of involvement, and the legacy is a result of that.
Absolutely.
What the motivations were, I don't think that matters. We can only guess at that. You can do some research on some of these people, and probably not somebody you want to hang out with. They were very nice people, but they were in a business to make money, and they did what they could do, to do that. And if that meant putting people in houses right outside the door of the factory, that's what we're going to do because they're going to be here, for our management people. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
That's all I have for you. So
Good.
that's awesome.